We're taking a look at the Key Dot Company's Portico bare bones keyboard today, and we have gone all in with the color purple. Now, we're going to be taking a closer look at the build quality on the keyboard, discussing some of the more interesting components we chose here, and going over the really interesting results for typing test and feel here, and discuss whether or not Portico is something you should be considering keeping an eye out for in a restock. Now, before we get started, just remember all of the parts you see in this video will be linked down in the video's description, and if there's any affiliate links down there, shopping through those helps me out, and it doesn't cost you anything extra. And on your way out, if you ended up liking what you see here, make sure to give the video a thumbs up and get subscribed and notified so you don't miss any of our content when it goes live. Portico is a gasket mount 65% polycarbonate keyboard with an FR4 switch plate, a single USB-C port in the rear center of the board, 5-pin south-facing Kale hot swap sockets, and VIA compatibility. It was a bare bones group buy through the Key Dot Company at $137 for me with shipping and shipping protection. As of this writing, there are still some terminal green models on the site going for $135 plus shipping, as well as black case extras, and a bundle deal that gets you a bit of a discount on everything you need to make a complete Portico with Kiwi switches. The board and all parts arrived in a pretty decent carrying case with a rigid fabric-covered exterior and a pocket to hold any of your spare parts and cables. I believe these are color matched to the color of the keyboard you purchased. The included unbraided cable has this awkwardly long coil in the cable. If it was only 6 to 9 inches or so, it'd probably look a lot better than it does, but as it stands, it's kinda not great, so I'd look to replace it when you get the chance with something that matches your setup. Also included is a set of C3 Equalz PCB mount stabilizers, color matched to your Portico. So far, these are my favorite PCB mount stabilizers as they have great fit and finish, require no clipping, respond well to lube, and tend to stay tuned reasonably well. For this build, we tuned them with XHT BDZ and G-Lube. Overall, keyboard build quality is pretty good for the price point, no visible fasteners from the top of the case, decent fit between the top and bottom halves, no issue with fasteners being overly torqued. The badge on the bottom of the case is alright, but both of mine came with some imperfections, and the one on my black case came off while I was peeling the protective plastic. It's on the bottom though, so it doesn't really bother me much at all. If you've never heard of FR4, it's the same material used to make PCBs, giving it a greater degree of flexibility than metal, but not quite as much as polycarbonate. This was my first encounter with an FR4 plate, so we'll take a deeper dive into this material when we get more examples in the studio. The gasket mount implementation here is really nice compared to my GMMK Pro, offering actual cushioning. It's not something you necessarily notice to look at, rather it's something you feel, as the tactile switches we're using here have a distinctly different feel to them here than in a more rigid plate like aluminum. Also included is a silicone case insert and felt plate foam. Removal of either of these doesn't really do much other than make the board sound more hollow, so I'd recommend leaving these in place for a clean, tight-sounding board. There's also several spare gaskets in the event you need to replace some of them. The PCB is made specifically for use with the Portico, and it's got right side blocking between the arrow keys and the function keys to fit the case properly. It's got a clean layout and has no visible issues. Where the board falls apart for me, though, is in the RGB lighting and control. The controller can't seem to hold on to how to handle the RGB lighting, so after a few hours of being turned on, they sort of freak out and either turn off entirely or display incorrect colors. Now, the Key Dot Company was particularly helpful in attempting to assist me with diagnosing this problem. We went through a couple of different hex files, went through a different JSON file. We couldn't really get the issue to go away on my original PCB, so I have to turn the LEDs off with this one. They did send out a replacement PCB for me as well. Unfortunately, this one looks to be exhibiting the same exact behavior this one did at stock, so I will leave a pinned comment down below after I go through my reflashing process with this to see if this board behaves any differently from the one I was originally sent. That said, if your RGB lighting does work properly, it's pretty clean shining through the switches, but it doesn't really get diffused through much through the polycarbonate case for the underglow, so there's obvious hotspots. For switches, we've gone with Everglide Crystal Violets, a 63.5 gram tactile switch with an ABS housing, pretty good factory lube, and huge round tactility. Tactility is so huge here that the switch gets stuck under stabilized caps on the return stroke. This was repeatable behavior that required a spring swap in those switches to make them work. So we went with PrimeKB's gold-plated Duroc 67 gram springs, which they pre-lubed with PTFE oil as an add-on service. As a word of caution, do not use PTFE oil on any switch that has polycarbonate in the bill of materials. PTFE oil and polycarbonate don't really play well together, and you will have a bad time with it. Also worth noting, crystal violets don't have a long stem pole like a halo stem, so bottom out is a bit more subdued here. Caps are PG PBT Geometry. Single shot, PBT, dye sub, base cream color with purple text. PG is a flat profile with a mild dish in the top of the cap, similar to DSA but with a broader, less tapered plateau. The legends are clean, but a little weird in that C and U look nearly identical, and some of the smaller text has light bleeding between letters, but it's otherwise a really pretty and expansive set for the price point. It also contains a 2U shift key. Because these are single shot caps, we also went ahead and filled in the spacebar with some thin neoprene to mute it a bit. We also got a custom cable made by Swift Cables, no coil or anything, just a really clean, well-made cable, though I do wish the purple Tech Flex had been a bit darker. I'm otherwise really happy with their service and can highly recommend their cables. And of course, no tactile switch build is complete without bra mat, in Brupple, to tie the whole thing together. Extras available right now at Space Cables. Now for that sound test. Now, I actually kind of love most of how this build turned out. As far as acoustics are concerned, it is admittedly very muted and very clacky, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. This is sort of the quiet keyboard for someone that doesn't want quiet switches, because remember, silent switches have that extra silencing material on the slide rails on the side of the stem, and that creates a bit of a mushy sensation that not everyone's super keen with. This is actually tolerable to be in the room with. Now, this non-sculpted cap profile did take me a minute to get used to, but once I acclimated to it, I actually rather enjoyed this quite a bit. Again, definitely not going to be for everyone, and for those of you who are more of a touch typist that prefer having a sculpted feel to the caps to help you identify where your hands are, this may be a little distracting for you. As far as the tactility on these crystal violets, it's massive. Like, this is bigger than the tactility that I get out of my Halo stem. So this is probably more closely related to like a T1 style profile, but man, in this dampened board, it really feels so unique. Like, it still feels like a massively tactile switch, but because you have the softness of FR4 and a gasket mount implementation that's actually letting the board and assembly flex, I don't know, it's just got this really unique sound and feel to it that I'm really quite keen on. C3 equal stabilizers that come with this, these are awesome. They tune out really easily, they're really smooth, no rattle to them whatsoever. These are great. There's no need to change these out. Overall functionality and flexibility is really nice here as well, thanks to this being VIA compatible. So this board can be whatever you need it to be. One thing I really want to see them work on for any future revisions, especially with the PCB, work on that RGB lighting control. Yes, you can just turn it off and then it's no longer a problem, but ultimately that's a feature you paid for, and if it's malfunctioning like this, then I'm not getting what I paid for. I mean, really, apart from that though, I would actually really like to see this as a regularly in-stock buy, even if it's just 3 of the basic colors, right? The black case, the smoky, and the clear as the regularly in-stock ones, and then have like special releases of different color variants. Honestly, if there was ever a fully opaque white case that released for this, I'd buy it in a heartbeat. So to wrap it all up, yeah, this is currently one of my very favorite keyboards, and it's been in permanent rotation for me for a while now. But I'm not going to stick with the purple setup for my daily driver use. I'm going to swap it over into the black case extra that we purchased. So make sure you're following me on my social media feeds to see how the case swap turns out for this build. And if you made it to the end of the video, thank you so much for watching. Remember, if you liked what you see here, make sure to give us a thumbs up on your way out and get subscribed and notified so you don't miss all of our content when it goes live. And I'll catch you all next time. Take it easy.